The views and opinions expressed by Geeks Represent are those of the participants and not presented by medical professionals. Please consult your physician or a fitness trainer before making any decisions regarding your diet and exercise regimen. This is Geeks Represent, where we talk about representation and issues that matter to us geeks. We are
Daryl,
Marshall,
Sean,
and your host, Joe. When you think of geeks, what body types do you normally think of? Chances are, due to decades of stereotyping in the media, you think of genuinely unfit nerds with unhealthy habits. But here at Geeks Represent, we believe a healthy geek is a happy geek, and that we should do our best to keep fit and live sustainable lifestyles. Today, we'll be consulting our very own fitness buff, pun intended, Sean. So Sean, what do you think is the most important factor in staying fit?
Yo. So I think the most important thing for staying fit, just being consistent really in anything that you enjoy or can find yourself dedicating time to. Because I know a lot of people, they'll start like some fitness regimen super hard, super gung-ho, and then they get like ultra sore. And because they're ultra sore, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Or like, they just burn out real quick. Or it ends up becoming like a chore after like 2 months. So in terms of like trying to build like more of a lifestyle change instead of just like a quick fix or a quick fad to hop on, I think just finding anything that takes away the fact that you're working out and make it more like something that's fun. I think that would be the best thing in terms of like long-term impact for staying fit, because there's so much progress you can make from just staying active year round. Whether you just decide to like, like I like hiking, I like enjoying nature. Most people end up like walking miles, like tens of miles just hiking. And then they don't really think that it's like workout, but it is. And that's super awesome. Like you could do things like dancing, you could do things like sports or anything that really lets you kind of de-stress, relax, but gets your heart rate up a little bit to keep your heart healthy and gets you mobile enough that you still retain a lot of mobility and whatnot. Because as we get older, the biggest things that we lose that really kind of impact our quality of life is usually our flexibility / mobility and our strength. And if you can maintain it throughout your life, then it'll be so easy to like just be chilling like in shape when you're like super old. Getting old doesn't mean what it used to, because recently I went to the Nationals Masters track meet, and my gosh, like those mofos are like in fucking shape, man. Like there were still people like 80 plus jumping over hurdles and like doing like 10 different events. Yeah, they were over 80, like 80 to 100 years old, jumping over hurdles, man. And
I got joint pain now.
Yeah, I feel a lot of pain as well. But it's crazy to talk to some of them, because some of them like started like super late. Like, oh yeah, I just started like when I was 85, and then I just been doing this.
Started when I was 85.
Yeah, so that goes to show it's never really too late to get into it. You know, like you might think that, my prime years of being like in my 20s or even 30s are gone. Like, what can I do? Nah, man, these people were like 60 years old. They were faster than me. They were like 6-year-old chicks with abs. I was like, what is anything even, man? Like,
it makes me think of that one like old dude, that old like model, right, in China, I think, or South Korea, with like the long white mane and abs of steel, making him look like the dude from like One Punch Man. Like, what's his name? The old guy.
Fang?
Bong, yeah.
Oh, Blast?
That's Bong.
Fang? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Bang. Yeah, Bang. Not Blast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was ridiculous, because like my coach and I, we went there. We were like doing like maybe 3 events tops, and we were like focusing on recovery. And these guys were like partying it up, playing spades until like 2 a.m., drinking. And then they were running like 6 events a day. And I was like, I want to get in that kind of shape when I'm older, and
right,
just like listening to people like they've just been doing it for so long. Some of them that like it becomes so easy to maintain. So consistency is probably the most important thing that I would think for staying fit, and a nice diet helps with that too. You don't have to diet super, super hard or like give up like a lot of foods that you might like enjoy, you know? There's so many like fad diets that like, oh yeah, if you give up carbs, then you'll be good, you'll lose weight and stuff like that. But like people will give up carbs, they'll lose weight a little bit, and then they like crave those sugars and stuff like that. And like they go back to it and then they blow up from it. And then they wonder like, why I can't, nothing is working. And it's like, you can still lose weight eating the things that you enjoy. And I'll break that down really quick because it's pretty simple. Basically, everyone has a maintenance calorie zone that they have. It's usually calculated. There's a bunch of online calculators that do that. It's usually calculated by age, weight, height, and your gender. And then they, based on that and your activity level, they estimate how many calories you can eat to maintain that your certain weight. So people will be like, oh yeah, my metabolism used to be faster when I was younger, but metabolism is not really like a thing that really makes people like be able to eat more or not. That's actually a myth. It's just how lean you are, how much lean mass that you have. So like when people get older, usually they lose a lot of lean mass because they're not as active as they were like when they were in high school or in college even. So yeah, so basically you just need to find your maintenance calories and based on your goals to lose weight, usually between 300 to 500 calories underneath that is a good place to start to be in a caloric deficit so that you can lose like half a pound to a pound a week. And some people will be like, oh, that's not much. But if you think about it, if you can keep that up for a year, that's 26 to 52 pounds, which is a crap ton. And you'd be able to adhere to that and it'd be so much more enjoyable instead of like you lost it real quick, gain everything back, possibly gain more. And yeah, so other than the calories, probably most important thing is your protein count. If you're cutting, it's more important to have higher protein. If you're not cutting, protein isn't as important because you're in a surplus. So your muscles are usually spared due to that. But a nice range for protein count would be 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight that you have. For me, I usually keep it on the lower side because I'm usually chronically in a maintenance or caloric deficit. And I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why I do that is so I can I have more calories allotted for other foods to hit, like carbs, for me, beer, ramen, things that are fatty, because it could be really tiring to eat meat that is like lean. It doesn't have much calories, and like usually most tasty meats have fat. So fats usually carry a lot of calories with it. So if you want to hit your caloric allotment and hit like a high level of protein, that means you won't have as much room left for sweets like carbs or sugars and stuff like that. So yeah, I usually put it on the 0.8 range, 0.85. That's plenty. Like people will say that you need more than that, but not really, man. Like look at prisoners, like they're joked. And they definitely don't be eating that great, man. They're not like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get a lot of protein. But yeah, so other than that, you can basically break up your fat to carb ratio however you want. It's however you would like to make it enjoyable. Like some people like more fatty things, like let's say they like cheese and pizza and stuff like that. And some people like a lot of carbs, like me. Like I like rice, noodles, ice cream. So yeah, that's the basic gist of dieting. Calories super important. You can adjust it to gain weight based on how much you're above it or below your maintenance calories. Hit your protein, and then after that, it's free for all.
Do you find, I fell off this app a long time ago, but do you find apps like MyFitnessPal, like that, you know, track your macros to like a T useful, or do you find them more like stressful or like make it not fun? Or
so it's both useful and it can be stressful, and that's where like a lot of like people who try to follow dieting like too hard end up like kind of fall off after a few months, like they need like a break from like tracking things. That's why I like to personally, like when I'm coaching my athletes or whatever, or clients, I kind of planned like food banks or like meals of the day kind of things. Like, oh, this would kind of fit in your thing. That way, the most you have to do is like at most just make sure that you weigh it out correctly so that you're consistent each day. And then if it's already packaged, then you don't really have to weigh it up as much. It's already done for you. And then you're just like, all right, eat this many carbs a day, like a slice of bread, or I usually break it down and eat this and whatnot. That way they don't have to do much thinking. They can just eat, enjoy what they eat, and not have to develop a stressful relationship with food. Because it definitely happens a lot amongst athletes, I think, where tracking ends up being almost negative. Definitely after a while. I've definitely gone through it. My girlfriend's gone through it, and definitely a lot of people we know have gone through it.
Yeah.
Sean, you said you have clients. What do you do, and how do you know so much?
So I'm a Olympic weightlifter. I do track, and I coach for Olympic weightlifting, track, powerlifting, and like sparring races and all those things. Also dance as well, and I teach dancers and stuff like that. So this is I'm speaking from like experience from having to cut and diet down for my weight class for Olympic weightlifting and stuff. So that's where I've learned from all the years of doing this.
Has COVID impacted your ability to, I'm sure it has a little bit, but at least to your ability to train yourself and others at all? Or do you think things have normalized now if like, there's more restrictions and mandates, or like now things are more regulated?
I think things have normalized now. It was trickier when everything was on lockdown. Like I would have to be creative and do like more calisthenics type stuff, or factor in the fact that like most people don't have like gym access and stuff like that. But nowadays, at least in LA, most people have gym access. And if not, I also train people who do like track and stuff, and like most outdoor recreational stuff is like open. So it's pretty much normalized, I guess. Again, I've been doing remote coaching more so instead of in person, so that kind of helped. Prior to the pandemic, I was doing like more remote stuff, so that kind of helped, I guess, set me up to make it still normal.
You want to coach me? Because I'm definitely guilty of, you mentioned earlier, like when you get sore and you don't feel like working out for a few days, and that just completely knocks me out of my habit, knocks me out of my routine for like at least a week.
Yeah, sure. We can work on stuff, because like the most important thing is just finding that sweet spot. And this is where like having a coach is kind of helpful to be able to like see like, all right, this is obviously like what you can handle, like from another like lens, like another person have eyes that like, this is what you can handle. And I think if we just push the sweet spot where it's not like a little too much, then you'll be good to just maintain. And then the progress you make from there is going to be great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just one more question before we move on. From me, anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Well, so can you clarify? Because I got a little confused when you were making a distinction between like the different kinds of like bulking, clean bulk, dirty bulk, all that. What would you say for someone such as myself who wants to do more like a lean cut, like doesn't want to be bulky, doesn't want to be too muscular, but does want to like lose fat, show them abs and whatnot?
Yeah. So are you trying to gain weight or just stay where you are and like kind of recomposition?
Kind of stay where I am. I'm 168 right now, but I still have like a tire around me.
So you can do what we call, or what a YouTuber named Greg Doucette kind of coined, main gaining. So basically, you're in a slight caloric deficit, and this is what I usually do year round, so that you'll be in like maybe 200, 300 under. So basically, at that point, you're still close enough to maintenance that you can still add muscle, but you are still burning fat at that point. So weight-wise, the difference, you might change a little bit because you're starting to lose fat, but you're getting muscle, so most of the time you'll be around the same weight because it's so close to your maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So I would recommend that. It's pretty fun. It's a lot better than actually doing like a real cut. And yeah, you can just maintain it. And usually, and this is like what I found in a lot of like food studies and stuff like that, is when you're generally in a caloric deficit, a lot of other issues, like let's say like insulin levels and all that stuff, they end up getting kind of like normalized or whatnot, or like how you process fats and stuff like that, cholesterol. It ends up being, for the most part, very favorable for your body to like process it. So usually most issues that you see when you're in a caloric surplus and having to like really crack down on like what kind of foods you're eating, your food choices are eating, you don't have that much of an issue as when you're in a caloric deficit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Does anyone else want advice for themselves?
Trying to not pay Sean for the work that he does. Come on, John.
No, I'm here to help everyone.
What are you talking about?
I like talking about all this stuff.
All right, then I'll go then.
Yeah.
So, as for myself, I am on the bigger side. Previously, I've had some success with a lot of diet changes plus like strength training. But more recently, I'll just say in recent years, I have developed like chronic shoulder pain. So I kind of had to push back on the strength training because that messed me up a little bit. And I've been doing more like, basically for most of last year, I was just like walking more and just changing out my diet. But what would your advice be for someone like myself who just wants to get to a better BMI for my age and height and weight and life?
Okay, so in terms of your shoulder pain and stuff like that, luckily that's pretty easily like fixable if you start like changing how you work out to like being more like physical therapy type oriented. Because most of us aren't like training to like be super competitive like national level athletes or to represent USA or not, or like doing a sport. So like why do we have to like train like that, you know, to try and like push like heavy numbers in like say bench, squat, deadlift? And when it's like, unless we're powerlifting, like having big numbers in those isn't as important as like how I guess our bodies are firing functionally, and how I guess the kind of like mass development that we want. Because getting strong is a good sign and indicator of like progress, and that's a nice way to like measure yourself like year after year and whatnot. But it's definitely not the end all be all, because like after you get to a certain point, it really isn't that helpful, and if anything, it can be kind of hurtful, as I can definitely attest to with a lot of my injuries and stuff like that I have that are pretty chronic. So like if you don't have to do it, then there's so many ways around it that you can like build to be like nice and healthy and whatnot, and to get to a healthy BMI. So luckily, a lot of like physical therapy type exercises are like perfect for bodybuilding, because they are so good at like isolating small muscles that you would never use before and getting them to work in conjunction with the bigger muscles that you have. And the nice thing about them too is that you don't have to go that like ridiculously heavy with them to like get results. And that's super nice in terms of like in injury prevention, not getting like ultra sore. I mean, you might still get sore just because you get like a good pump and stuff like that, and working muscles in random places that you're like, why is it still tight and whatnot. But yeah, so like adding that in conjunction to what you've already done, which is the walking and the eating better, I think that would help. Because back to what I was saying about maintenance calories, it's your maintenance calories or metabolism is more directly related to the lean muscle that you carry on your body. So the more lean muscle that you carry, the more you can eat or the more you can burn. So by staying, even if you're at the same weight, if you're leaner, you'll end up burning more, and it ends up cascading and making it easier to get leaner. Yeah.
That makes sense. And so I won't need to go back to the physical therapist to do the physical therapy exercises, or should I still consult a professional before starting any workout?
I mean, I would definitely try and see a PT, just because they could like really pinpoint and see what's wrong with your shoulder and stuff like that. But a lot of their exercise that they do recommend is kind of rudimentary. So I guess I would consult a professional in that case if they have that kind of background, because a lot of them don't. So kind of like finding that balance where you have those exercises, but then you find ways to progress them would be the ideal.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you need some
to do.
advice, I can throw some to you later.
Most appreciated.
Yeah.
Marshall, do you want to milk this free advice without paying him or no?
Oh, I'm good. I got my own set track right now.
All right, cool.
Nice.
All right. So besides trying to like crash diet, trying to like cut out their like favorite cravings. I know I can't do that. I got too much of a sweet tooth. Trying to reduce it to like just one thing a day. If I eat like a Pop-Tart, then I don't eat anything else that's like sugary for the rest of the day. Wait till tomorrow, that sort of thing. But so yeah, aside from trying to cut out like your cravings and only to fall back or fall back into the habit really hard, what other mistakes do you find people do when they're dieting or trying to diet or exercise that they should avoid?
I find that people tend to be like super hard on themselves, and then that ends up like making them like more stressed out. And for a lot of people, some people like either stress eat or they don't eat. So either reaction is like really, really bad, because when they don't eat, then when they do eat, they end up binge eating, and then it's like a whole mess kind of thing. But yeah, like even if you aren't adhering to your diet perfectly, it's better to be close, like on it, like 80% of the time, and make sure the times that you're not on it be like not so egregious that it just like kind of gets rid of everything, where it's like kind of within the target zone, like of a like 20% differential or whatever. Like usually when I program for clients, like I'll have built-in cheat days where they can eat basically a lot more than they can eat during the week, because during the week they eat an amount that's a little less than the average or whatever, but it's like a doable amount, and it kind of like saves money in the bank, where they kind of can feel like that they have like they are eating more and whatnot, and it kind of like abets that craving or not to eat more or to binge and whatnot, and it kind of feels still normal, like you can still go out to eat without any guilt. And yeah, just being kind and like not guilt tripping yourself and not giving up when you mess up is probably the biggest thing. Because yeah, like when people mess up, like they'll stop for like a week, and then a week turns into a month, and a month turns into a year. Like if you mess up, just hop back on it, like as soon as you can, and then figure out like, yeah, just hop back on it, and then you'll end up going way further than if you just like gave up. And I think I would say that's what people make a mistake a lot. Another thing I guess I see a lot of people do is like they'll snack a lot or stress eat. A nice thing to do, especially if you can't, like, I think quitting the habit of stress eating is harder than substituting the food that you stress eat on. So like some people will eat chips, right? Or they'll binge drink, or they'll drink like a lot of soda. Like if you choose like alternatives to that, like diet soda, you just binge on that, you still get the kick, but you don't get any of the calories, and you'll basically still be on track. Instead of chips, if you eat popcorn is pretty low in calories. Like you can eat a lot of it and still be pretty good. And like even if you binge something, you're still binging less than you would have. And overall, like long term, that's way better than just like cutting it out and then like having a relapse and then going back into it. So yeah, finding healthy options like that, I think, is a nice way to like kind of compensate or work with what hardships you might normally have. And I think people trying to cut that hardship out cold is really tough.
I must say, Trader Joe's has a lot of good options for if you want to substitute those snacks. I've been on like plantain chips. Also like you ever heard of Hippies? They're like,
oh, Hippies are the best.
Yes, they're so good. They're essentially like Cheetos, but they're made out of like chickpeas instead. So you get your fiber.
Nice. Yeah. And they're not bad for you. Looking at the calorie counts, they're astonishing.
and you're actually getting your fiber intake, or at least helping
Nice.
it. So stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. I do find that easier because I think I tried like not snacking, right? But you know me, I can't do that. But you're right, just finding like healthy alternatives. Even like honestly, even things like instead of like sour cream on like my homemade like tacos or burritos, I'll use like Greek yogurt, like plain Greek yogurt.
Nice.
Tastes pretty much the same, same
Yeah.
consistency. So
Yeah.
Which
I
leads-
got people who use sour cream. I just don't understand it.
I haven't. I don't think I've used sour cream ever, like for years now. Never needed to.
Like,
Nice.
I have my bias because I'm lactose intolerant. But
okay.
certain brands of Greek yogurt I can actually eat. The ones that don't actually, some brands like substitute regular yogurt in their Greek yogurt, so it doesn't really help you there. But actual Greek yogurt doesn't have lactose to deal with. But anyway,
Why don't they make everything lactose free? Honestly, because
People
it's pretty
love
much the same.
cheese.
It's real milk.
Consumers.
Well, yeah, but like, there's actually like like lactose free milk, lactose free like Greek yogurt, lactose. There's a lot of lactose free products.
They're still on the shelves though until they go to hit clearance because no one's buying them.
I'm buying them.
Okay,
I'm
that
the
you're
one buying
one
gallons of
person out
Lactaid.
of the entire world. I want to make sure this bonnet wearing dude is buying. This
Oh, you shut
particular-
up.
Particular yogurt versus the thousands of people.
they actually do sell. They actually do sell Greek yogurt in like squeeze bottles now, so you can replace it for, I guess, sour cream if you use that, or
Oh, that's pretty cool.
mayo.
Yeah.
Personally, when I made a mistake on my diet, it was mostly like those stupid fad diets. I'll be upfront about it.
Yeah. Like what kind of diets did you try that just didn't stick or?
So I did that Nutrisystem thing for a little bit for the males. The only problem is the type of work that I had to do was so stressful. I was like passing out from the lack of food I could eat because they gave me like
Dang.
the smallest little portion saying this should last you all day. But I'm working like maybe 10, 11-hour days. No, and I'm working and I'm just like looking at stuff and I'm like, this, can I have a snack? You can't have a snack. You can drink water. And I can't just drink water all damn day. I'm going to freaking pass out. I got irritable. I got angry. Like, and then I had like the resting, like, don't talk to me face. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I had three raisins, the smallest piece of chicken breast.
Raisins.
Yeah, raisins. And I was like,
Just take a whole box.
I will literally freaking body slam you right now. It's like, I just want to know you're coming to the meeting. No, I'm not coming to the meeting. But bad diets did not do me justice. So I was like, nah, it's not just do portion control, which is really helping me lose weight.
Nice.
Portion control is definitely key. And I did have a very similar experience when I was trying to do Whole30, and basically I didn't restrict myself too much on like the snacking, but I just had to make sure that I wasn't eating a lot of carbs, right? And that's what Whole30 was about. And I think it was also my problems were compounded by the fact that we were doing like 6 times a week workouts.
Mm.
So without those carbs, I had like I burned my energy really quickly. I maybe I didn't do enough research on it. Maybe I didn't transition, or I didn't do too quickly. I did it too quickly, or maybe it just wasn't for me. And I think that's why I determined that Whole30 just didn't work out for me. I need those carbs. But yeah, I just felt so much weaker, and like my recovery took much longer than it used to without replenishing my energy, right?
I was gonna say carbs are definitely not the enemy, because like if you do anything like athletic, carbs is like your first energy system that you have to tap into. Like doing anything where you kind of do glyconeogenesis via fats and stuff or proteins, like it's too slow. Like you're gonna cramp, you're gonna get lightheaded, you're gonna just like pass out. Like the people who can sustain that long term are probably not really like athletes. They're probably just training to look good. So like if you're trying to be like a functional human and like want to go through life without freaking dying and be like realistic, like carbs, man, like Yeah, carbs are
But
important.
I want that Instagram body.
You can get it with the
Greens
carbs.
every
You
day.
gotta pay for it in
You
tears.
can get it with the carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Diet wise, the first time I actually tried an actual diet, I was doing this like online social media based fitness challenge called hashtag SexyShred, which worked pretty well. I dropped like 11 pounds over about, I think, 5-6 weeks or so.
Nice.
And that was mostly due to cutting out, well, it was based on clean eating. So like cutting out white rice, white flour, white starches and whatnot, white sugar, and eating only like organic foods. And we had a whole list of ingredients we couldn't get. Nothing like, no like stabilizers or maltodextrin or guar gum or stuff like that. That
There's
isn't like
corn
supposed to be like
syrup.
clean, quote unquote. And that was good for the time, but I was also in school at that time. And so that wasn't super sustainable across like dorm food and like
Right.
dining hall stuff. And yeah, that didn't really work out too well. But in this past year, I started on like a basically like a high fiber diet. Like basically, instead of cutting everything out, you try and replace half of your meals with something that is, well, colorful vegetables, you can say. So like you can have some rice, you can have some beans or whatnot, but you can have potato. But just making sure you have a lot more vegetables than everything else keeps you full, keeps you energized, keeps you going. And
Keeps your taste buds happy.
oh yeah, you can make some real good vegetables there. And
Nice.
because of the whole lactose intolerant thing, that kind of leaned me into doing a lot more like vegan foods, which can be unhealthy, but if you do it the right way, it's just like it can like sate some cravings for you that could be a lot worse diet wise for you.
Yeah.
That brings up an excellent point that, you know, people who knock like vegan diets, like I'm not vegan at all, but I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of great vegan recipes that are, you know, high in fiber, you know, as long as you avoid the ones that are like also high in sodium. And that's like problem with like things like the Impossible Burger, whatever, like those fake meat products tend to be loaded in sodium just to replicate the taste. But there's a lot of like delicious, like meat-free, like dairy-free recipes, you know, like aren't even just like vegan, right? Like a lot of like Indian like cuisines, right? Like fall under that category. A lot of like South or Southeast Asian foods can fit the bill just fine.
That reminds me, since you brought up sodium. Yeah, sodium is actually not as bad as people think.
No.
Especially if you're like super active. Because sodium is an electrolyte. There are 4 electrolytes: calcium, potassium, sodium, and
Magnesium?
magnesium. Yeah. Because that's like how your muscles kind of contract through the action potentials and whatnot, through like how it cascades from cell and outside of a cell. And depending on how you have it in your body, that's what prevents the cramping, really, is having the sodium. So when you're really active, you actually can eat a lot more sodium than what's like recommended. And those daily recommendations and how of it being tied to like hypertension and all that stuff is there's still like research that's being done that's kind of like refuting it right now. Like it's not really a strong correlation. It's been what's been known back then. So there's still stuff coming out on it now, but based on if you're pretty active, you definitely need the sodium, especially if you drink a lot of water, because there are times where if you drink too much water without the salt, you could end up having a worse electrolyte imbalance, and then you would end up cramping anyways because you're like overly hydrated, but you don't have the correct salts in your diet. Another thing too, to tie back to like being kind to yourself and stuff like that, is that like people sometimes don't realize too that like if they like started like say incorporating a little more salt or a little more carbs in their diet, you automatically will retain more water just temporarily until your body like normalizes it. If you cut carbs out, you usually lose a lot of weight because you lose water. It's part of like what I usually do to like cut weight like really quick, like a quick 10 pounds in a week for competition to like make a weight class. So basically, when you have carbs get stored in your muscles, and when they do that, they bring in water into your muscles as well. So you're like hydrated, and you end up having a weight there that could easily be like considered like weight loss. Like if you were to cut that out, that's why like most people when they go on keto, they lose like 11 pounds right away because they're just emptying all their glycogen storage from their muscles. So to go back to my point, if you do incorporate carbs into your diet, like do expect at least a couple pounds fluctuation, like to go up. It's not the end of the world. Like that's totally normal. You will hit a point where your body is like, all right, I'm full of glycogen, and then you'll still be losing the weight during that time. So like you might be filling up with water, but your fat loss still might be occurring, and you won't really see that on the scale until like maybe a couple weeks later after your body normalizes. So definitely take that into consideration before you think like, oh, this diet isn't working for me or whatnot, or like, I thought I was doing everything right, why isn't it working, kind of thing, you know.
I will just say on the sodium point, didn't really realize that about the whole being electrolyte. That makes sense. That's good for you, but just a heads up, still African Americans are kind of more likely to die from heart disease than other minorities in the US. So it's just a just an awareness thing. There's a study done this past year, and well, it was a survey done in 2018 saying that African Americans were more likely to die from heart disease than non-Hispanic whites. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You gotta be active.
To be fair, if Michelle was here, she would say that African Americans are also more likely to die from like almost everything in America, everything else in America as well.
Pretty much,
like,
yeah. It's a ticking time.
Yeah.
Sucks, but
yeah. I mean, that's why I said like if you're active, then you can up the levels a little bit more. Because similarly, the number one killer for Vietnam is also high blood pressure and stuff like that.
Yep. And diabetes.
Salt.
We love our rice.
Yeah. But usually, like I said, like if you're in the caloric deficit and you drink plenty of water, because a lot of people don't drink enough water. If you're drinking like a gallon a day, then that you got to play with the ratios a little bit, you know? Because if you actually look at like an electrolyte drink, there's a lot of sodium in there. If it's a good one. If it's Gatorade, then the Gatorade's weak. It's not good.
Okay. We've been putting like Propel powder, right? Like, you know, lots of electrolytes in that, and it's delicious.
Nice.
Which actually goes to the other point you were talking about. So, like, you still need it. I think a lot of people try to cut out like flavoring, right, like spices and salts out of their food whenever they're dieting. And I'm like, why would you do that to yourself, right? Right, yeah. Marshall, right? Right, Marshall.
I mean, because spices are flavoring. That's just a plus.
Well, yeah. I bring it up because I remember we came to like one Friendsgiving and we brought like Brussels sprouts, and you and a lot of other people were like, "Ew, Brussels sprouts! Like that's like ew," and you actually tasted it and found that we actually seasoned it right and roasted it like you're supposed to, and even sprinkled bacon on it.
First off, I did not say ew to Brussels sprouts.
You and Frank totally did. Like, we brought Brussels sprouts, and you were like, "Why did you?" You were like, "Why did you?" And other people were like, "Why did you bring like vegetables to this Friendsgiving? You're supposed to bring like mashed potatoes and shit." And I'm just like, because we knew you would. That's why we try to bring something healthy.
Bruh, I still ate them. I don't remember that, and that was probably years ago. I haven't changed.
It was years ago. I still remember. It hurt me.
I bet your ass does. You brought them again the last time. I still ate them. So
y'all did eat them. You know why? Because they were delicious.
They were delicious.
Which goes to show healthy doesn't have to mean like bland or disgusting. It could mean
don't use that adjective. There's many other names to use for dull.
Oh, I'm sorry, not bland.
Yeah.
Just disgusting. I don't know.
Non-appetizing, dull,
Unappetizing. Yeah.
tasteless.
Flavorless. Flavorless.
Non-tasteful.
Yes.
You're flavorless.
Yes, you can use that.
But yeah. Which do y'all got any other for the rest of the geeks? Do we have any other like tips on like on keeping your diet healthy at all? Or like also what kind of like workouts? What are your favorite workouts y'all like to do?
This is Marshall. My favorite are the HIIT workouts. So they're like small interval workouts that you do. I usually do them after work just because of time constraints. But I usually also find on like my Instagram reels. So when I go down that Instagram reel hole, they're like, "Hey, you should try this HIIT workout." It's like high knees, mountain climbers, chops, jumping jacks, and you do like 5 reps, 10 times each, and then I'm burning up a sweat, and I don't have to use any equipment or have any gym membership. So I love it just because it's simple, easy to do, and I can just use my own body weight because I'm on the heavier side. So therefore, I know it's going to be some resistance and some weight added to the workout. You know.
I could definitely attest to at least like the HIIT mentality or like the principles, right? Because I don't have a lot of time to work out in the day. I keep it quick, keep it fast, keep my weights like lower, but increase my reps and decrease on like the breaks in between in order to keep my heart rate up. And speaking of not having a lot of time, I know like if you have a day job, by the time you clock out, you're already exhausted, right? And sometimes it's really hard to be motivated to work out. So what I've been doing lately is waking up in the morning, like sometimes as early as like 4 or 5 a.m. and going to the gym, even for 30 minutes, maybe to an hour, and actually feeling a lot better over the day. Like, I don't know if that it's why it gets me energized in the morning, and then all of a sudden I'm energized for the rest of my day, and my metabolism is great for the rest of the day, or my appetite's good for the rest of the day. Yeah, that makes sense, Sean.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so if you have trouble like working out after work because you're so tired and unmotivated, maybe try doing it in the morning instead.
Yeah. Well, but if you do have some energy, one thing that has been great about working from home a lot is that you can not have to wait to end your day at work and just like drop everything, like change for your workout at lunchtime and then just walk out of the house and go for a walk or go for a run or something like that.
Play some Pokemon Go.
Exactly.
Hatch the eggs.
I would basically have what's to say? Basically, around the start of the pandemic, I was basically at 6 o'clock, I just drop everything, walk outside, and go out for like an hour. Just start walking, hatching eggs, and seeing what's out there. And that actually really contributed to a lot of weight loss on my end and just made me feel a lot better. And aside from that, I also was just like talking to a friend who was like a couple states away who was also walking. So even though we were at a distance, we were still like working out together and encouraging each other to keep going and whatnot. So that's been super helpful. Aside from that, I had been using like resistance bands. There's like an upper body workout thing I was doing to try and like stretch out the shoulder and issues I've been having. And that's been super helpful. I'm not going to lie, I've backslid a lot over this past year because of work intensity, having me work a lot more longer hours, so I couldn't drop everything at 6. But as a couple of days ago, even, I'm getting back into the habit of things. So
that's great, dude. I mean, it happens. Yeah. I definitely would like to reiterate basically what everyone said, and like the super important thing, it sounds like, is like doing what makes you like feel good, like afterwards, you know, like even if it's just something a little bit, like it doesn't have to be crazy. Like if you just start easy and just consistent and you just dive a little deeper into it because you're like really enjoying it. Like let's say like, oh, you can only walk like 5 miles or 1 mile at first, but then like you're playing Pokemon Go and then you end up like walking like for miles and miles and miles. Like that's huge, and that should be celebrated. And yeah, so like I think finding something you really enjoy doing that makes you feel good afterwards will for sure long term be better for you, because like not only are you getting physically more healthy, but like your mental health, which is super important too for like just keeping everything going, ends up getting its own workout, and finding things that like help you vent. Like I think Marshall wrote too that he likes doing boxing workouts as well. And that's like a huge way to like just get out all your stress and stuff like that. So like some people, they like banging weights out. Some people like dancing. Some people like running and just getting the runner's high to like forget about like all the stresses of life. So finding something that you can do that kind of like makes you forget about the stress of just like the day, I think that would be the best like kind of workout to do, rather than like, oh, you need to do a specific, like you gotta lift like fucking 500 pounds or some shit like that. But yeah, so
You gotta eat like the mountain.
yeah, you gotta eat like the rock,
live
like
the
you gotta
mountain.
be like the fucking John Cena and shit like that. Like comparing yourself like to all these freaking people who most of the time they're all on, like a lot of them are on roids, and a lot of them also are kind of getting paid to like be in shape and stuff like that. Like this, it's their job, so they better be. That's their 9 to 5. Like if you're doing this after a full-time job, props to you, man. Like that's fucking amazing. Like, because I know the people who do it as like who are fit for like their shape. If they had to do like a full-time job on top of that, they would crumble. Like easily crumble. Like they definitely couldn't do it because they can barely manage their time normally. So yeah, like definitely be kind to yourself. But if you do have to pick resistance training exercises, kind of like what I was telling Daryl earlier, try and like pick them from a physical therapy / bodybuilding lens, because more than likely it'll help you move better. Bodybuilding / functional lens, it'll help you just have a better quality of life in general, and have less of a chance for you to like develop overuse injuries, or just like putting your body out of whack from having weird compensation patterns in your body. So yeah, that's basically the sum of it.
Cool.
All right. So definitely having Sean's information in the show notes in case you need coaching.
All right. Unless anyone else has anything else to add. Well, thank you, geeks, for getting together tonight. Especially thank you, Sean, for your sage advice and giving us more clarity and giving us more very useful information about how to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, no problem.
And yep. Now, listeners, do you have a favorite way to keep fit? If you have any tips, leave your comments below. And thanks for tuning into Geeks Represent. If you've enjoyed this discussion, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts can be found. If you want to add to this discussion, visit geeksrepresent.com. There you can find our social media links. Thanks for listening.